Good morning, Bitcoin. Today is Monday, November 19th, 2018. My name is Thomas Hunt, and here's what's happening today in Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin is down again, down 8.43% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 5,170, a high of 5,646, and a low of 5,051. That's $1 for 19,500 Satoshis, very far away from the 15,000 Satoshi barrier, much, much closer to the 20,000 Satoshi barrier. We seem to be going the wrong way again. Is this capitulation? The noobs say, as they're losing money on crypto every day. Is this capitulation? According to Forbes magazine, who now has all the answers on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency related news, Bitcoin heads for 5,000 as Ripple and Ethereum fall. Here's why. Bitcoin is falling because, because a civil war in a fork of Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, led to the smaller cryptocurrency splitting into two again last week. The Bitcoin Cash hard fork, a consequence of the coin's developers and miners being unable to agree on a direction to take the cryptocurrency, resulted in the creation of Bitcoin ABC and Bitcoin SV. The resulting has made people unsure how to handle the split, blah, blah, blah. But what they really want to say, Ethereum, Ripple, KPMG comes home with the hammer saying that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are not ready to be classified as real currencies, and that using Bitcoin as a store of value is a fool's errand. The link they're trying to make here is that because Bitcoin Cash split off from Bitcoin, and because Bitcoin Cash Satoshi's vision split off from Bitcoin Cash, therefore you can make more copies of Bitcoin according to their lame understanding of Bitcoin. Let's go to JW Weatherman, who's joining us. Do you think that I can make more copies of Bitcoin because it's a copy of Bitcoin Cash?
No, obviously not. That's just a narrative that cheap con men have put together to fleece the foolish investor. So it is unfortunate that there's so much chaos, but I'm not worried about it. I mean, anybody that's investing in this stuff with like a 6-month time horizon is just not thinking straight. It's too easy to manipulate the market price with something that has limited volume. And especially when there's a lot of dumb money, you can put together a PR campaign, which is what this is. This is just a PR campaign. There was never a hash war. I don't think there's any even ill will between Craig and Roger. I think these guys are smart enough to know that they can put on a bit of a show, cause a little bit of market confusion, and profit by that. If they're not using this as an opportunity to sell their Bitcoin Cash and pick up Bitcoin, I'd be really, really surprised. I think that's really what's going on here. But it is unfortunate that Forbes and all these other outlets are so incompetent that they can be easily manipulated by somebody like Roger and Craig and their PR firm. So that's what we're dealing with. As far as the price, whatever. I doubt there's anybody that has like a 2 or 3 year time horizon, which is kind of minimal for doing tech investing, that is worried right now. I don't think any of us really think that there's a strong correlation between today's price and the price in 2 years.
Now, the other side of the coin, they say that it's the ICO crackdown that's going to take down Bitcoin. As you might have heard, there were a couple of Ethereum ICOs that were regulated. They even said that the ICOs have to pay people back the money that they invested in the ICO if they want a refund, which could be a shocking and terrifying thing for all these people that ran all these ICOs, especially if they held the wealth of their ICO in Ethereum, which is down to around $155 a coin right now, something like that. So what do you think about that, JW? Is it the Ethereum and the ICOs dragging down Bitcoin?
I think it's possible that there's a little bit of fear that people have. I mean, if you look at the way that a lot of the dumb money came into the space, Bitcoin was providing a lot of value. It has a lot of potential. and they just sort of like, very blurry-eyed invested in, quote, the cryptocurrency space. There isn't a cryptocurrency space. There's Bitcoin, and then a lot of people taking advantage of investors that really can't tell the difference between something that's designed to be government hard and has a use case, and something like Ethereum that's just, some marketing nonsense, or Ripple that's just marketing nonsense. So yeah, I mean, I think what's going on is probably related to that. I think there could be some people that are, there's a lot of like short-term investors, and even a high-tech startup are just insane. And if they're thinking that that this is going to cause some, cause people to need to sell or want to sell, then they're going to try to get out, right? And so it creates a lot of volatility in the short term for Bitcoin, just to have a bunch of uninformed investors. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's happening a bit. But of course, everybody that has a clue, including me, has been saying this for 12 months. This is how Ponzi schemes work, right? You build something like Ethereum, you shill it out to a bunch of suckers. It doesn't have any value. Of course, it performs better than any reasonable investment could, even though it doesn't have any value. But where you get into trouble is when the Ponzi starts falling apart, right? Where you don't have enough dumb money coming in to take care of the people before. And that's where people start getting pissed off because they've lost money, and then they start suing the Ponzi, because the SEC is not very proactive. They don't really prevent it ahead of time. They like to take their profits at the end of the Ponzi scheme. They don't really even want to prevent Ponzi schemes. They want to be able to find these guys. So now we're just in that phase, which everybody that has any clue what's going on has been saying for the first ICO went off. But yeah, it doesn't mean it can't introduce some crazy volatility into the price in the short term.
The other issue would also be with Ethereum and printing their own money. All of that is that it shouldn't drive the price of Bitcoin down. It doesn't make any sense. But they continue to do this crackdown thing. People have said from the beginning they should have been regulated. They should have been stopped from doing this, but now they're finally stopping them from doing this, and it's driving down the price of Bitcoin as well. So
yeah, I mean, the problem is, I think there are a lot of, quote, cryptocurrency investors, right? And you have a lot of VCs and a lot of other folks that do have a lot of money that they're putting to work, and a lot of just average people that they can't invest in the gas station down the street because of accredited investor laws, but they're able to invest in the stock market, which they know is not all that great for them. And then they get burned on a regular basis. So they're looking for something else. And unfortunately, even guys like, Pierre Rochard have been pushing this idea that you should be diversified in your investments. And if that makes sense, if you should be diversified and there is some value in the cryptocurrency space, then you should be doing what everybody's doing, which is putting together a basket of goods, right? Like, I'll take 20% Ethereum, 15% Ripple, throw in some Litecoin. So what we're seeing really is just the stupid education that a lot of people have been given since they were young on how to invest, bearing fruit in Bitcoin. But that's okay, because as these other people that don't know what they're doing, that are following the rules of government schools, and they're diversifying, they're going to be impoverished through this process. And that will prevent them from causing more problems in the economy later. So we're kind of going through this cleaning up the dumb money phase, and it's not pleasant. It's kind of a bummer. With all the work that's being done on Lightning and Liquid and Bitcoin and all of the advancements that have come out over the last year, it is kind of sad to see the price go down from when the technology is like way ahead of schedule, right, and very much on track. But that's all right. I mean, we gotta clean up the house every once in a while, and that's unfortunately what Bitcoin is having to be. It's having to be a filter for that dumb money, and that could last for another year or two. But it's even in that process, it's accomplishing a lot of good.
there was a wave of diversification talk, and it was easy to say, and I certainly suggested this as well, that people could put together a basket of the top 10 currencies and see how it goes. This is not something that I did while all those currencies rose to all their great heights, but it would have been an easy way to make money. But of course, if it was an easy way to make money the first time, why should it be an easy way to make money the second time? Sure, we all wanted it to be true and it looked good and everything. but it doesn't look like that worked out with buying the altcoins. Uh, Still, I think holding the Bitcoin could be the money-making dream you're looking for. It just didn't move fast enough for these other people. They wanted a more volatile investment. They wanted something that moves. And then, of course, all the problems, or the questions at least, with Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Cash SV and so on and so forth. But of course, we want to remind everyone right now, if you're not feeling good about your investment, if you overinvested, if you lost more than you can afford to lose, it's going to be okay. You should reach out and get help. There's suicide hotlines. You can talk to a friend. Bitcoin price is down. It's also a possibility that the Bitcoin price completely recovers. In all previous Bitcoin rallies, the price has rallied above the all-time high again. So if you are able to hold on to some of your Bitcoin, as hard as that's going to be, watch this thing from the sidelines. Maybe you still have a good job. I think it's a good time for people not to be quitting their jobs. It's a good time for people to be getting jobs. This is a good time to maybe you were going to retire as a Bitcoin trader and you were the altcoin wizard and you were the king and you were on top, and that's tough. It's tough to let that go, but you might have to get a job. A lot of us might have to get jobs. So there it is. There's your little moment of rationality. What do you think, JW? I know you're all about jobs.
Yeah, man, I think it's not that bad, right? Like, even if you have been wrecked on a Ponzi scheme investment and you've lost some money, big picture, you're probably poorer now than you're ever going to be, because the way that free market economies work is that even if you have been a bad investor and you've been demoted, everybody else that has been a good investor and has been promoted is using those resources wisely, and they have the skills and experience to do it, or they would be wrecked as well, probably. And they're working on your behalf, right? That's what entrepreneurs do. So I'm working to improve math education. I've got other things that I'm investing in, and there's a lot of other people that are doing that. And as a result, over the last 20 years, global poverty has been dropping at an increasingly rapid rate. Everything is getting better for everybody's quality of life all over the place, right? The Federal Reserve, yeah, they've been screwing us. There's been all kinds of bad things that governments have been doing to retard our progress, but we've still made a ton of progress. The average American is still living in a larger square footage of home than he was 50 years ago. There's still, a lot more quality of life, and in 50 years, it'll be even more, right? We're still going through a technology revolution here. We're still building things like self-driving tractors, right? Where you don't have to pay somebody to run around and pick up crops anymore. We can just have software that does that, which means the cost of crops goes down for the consumer, right? So all of these advancements happening all over the place are going to make your life better, even if you've made some really bad choices with the resources that you had to manage. Everybody else that didn't is still serving you. So don't get that out of, don't get it out of perspective and think that that your life is going to be worse 20 years from now because you made some bad decisions. That's definitely not likely to be the case. And then,
And you still have the knowledge and the ability to invest in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. You're still crazy early, even if you missed the easy boat, or you could have shorted this, or you could have longed that, or whatever it is. There's still a chance to make money either working in this industry, supporting it, teaching people, testing the industry, doing support for people, helping them learn to use the software. Because basically everyone needs to learn how to use Bitcoin and learn how to use all these altcoins. And, it's not over by a long shot. It's just, it might not be $1 million tomorrow.
and it might not be your job, right? Like, maybe the reality is that you would serve your neighbors and serve the world better by learning how to be a software developer or auto mechanic or something else, and this can be something that you're interested in. It's a hobby. The reality is not everybody needs to do every job. Not everybody needs to be an actress or an actor. And if you've been struggling to be an actor for 15 years and it's not coming together and you're waiting tables, maybe it's time to, instead of wait tables, be a much better paid auto mechanic. And if your opportunity comes, great. I think that's how people should look at the Bitcoin space. There's not a lot of jobs in Bitcoin right now. You really have to be a pretty competent technologist to be able to make a living doing this. And even those guys are doing it a lot for charitable, effort, right? They could probably get paid more doing other things. unless you're, part of a Ponzi scheme or something. But that's a short-term thing, right? Like all those guys that are developers for the Ethereum Foundation right now, they're starting to realize, I'm probably going to have to go get another job. And this may have not been the best investment of my time. But at the end of the day, what the market is telling you in a lot of cases is that you're just needed to do something else. Like we really, as a community of people that live on this planet, we really need you to go learn how to repair cars instead of, be a day trader in cryptocurrency. You haven't really been helping us out in any way. And as a result, we're not rewarding you financially. So go get a job, get a skill set where you can actually make other people's lives better. And in exchange for that, they'll give you money. And that's a much smarter way to operate for almost everybody. I have a Bitcoin class or a cryptocurrency class, and I try to explain that there's a progression to wealth creation, and you don't go from being a barista to being a speculator. It makes a lot more sense to progress to where you have a skill set. So if you want to speculate in tech, probably makes sense to be a software developer for a few years and then have a software development company and build a couple products before you get to the point where you're investing in other people's products. So a lot of this is just people wanting to take shortcuts, which is fine. Everybody's got to try it at some point. A lot of times that's the cost of education. But you've paid your tuition, you've taken your knocks, and now it's time to operate like you're a wiser person for it.
Now, I hear people saying, is this a rejection of Bitcoin? Are people saying no to Bitcoin? And I don't really see that. I don't think that people have really been sold Bitcoin, what it actually is, what the actual product is, what sound money is, why that's important, how Bitcoin provides this, and how basically no one has to print money anymore because we have Bitcoin. Even with the Lightning Network, they're not really tokens. It's not really new money. It's little itty bitty pieces of the Bitcoin that are then being traded around and cashed out later. That once we've done this, we've pretty much solved the money problem. We're not going to go back to seashells or to pieces of paper, even if they are, like in the UK, indestructible pieces of plastic. Amazing new money from the UK. It's see-through and it's indestructible, but the value could still go down. The piece of paper, though, is indestructible. So it's not going to be useful for burning in your fires. It's not going to be keeping your family warm when you have too many bills. But no, I don't think Bitcoin's actually been sold to the people, especially when you have people comparing it to Ethereum. The idea that you could run a smart contract and invest in the future of you running smart contracts. That just sounds like a fantastic deal for the people that are selling the smart contracts. And of course, the people that are selling the smart contracts also have a bunch of the supply from early on, and they can control the level at which the supply is made and the total amount of smart contracts. They could always raise it and print more smart contracts. I never understood why people were speculating in that as compared to Bitcoin or with something like Litecoin, which is a nice and cute copy of Bitcoin. Litecoin has 4 times the number of Bitcoin's units because it was supposed to be Bitcoin's quarter. Litecoin could be a quarter. Again, this is the idea of scaling on another chain. If you can't scale on one giant chain, why don't you scale on 2 giant chains, or maybe 3 or 4? And that doesn't make any sense. Litecoin was fun, though. It was used politically as a test bed during the political times when we couldn't get SegWit through on Bitcoin. But things have settled back down now, and I think we can keep using the testnet for testing Bitcoin. So still, a coin has to have a problem to solve. What do you think, JW? Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not a rejection of Bitcoin that the price is going down. It's a reflection of the fact that a lot of people have no idea what they're doing. So I as a smart investor, I'm not looking at the price and deciding how valuable something is. I'm doing exactly the opposite, right? I'm looking at the technology and the value that it brings because it's a tool. If it's a screwdriver that bends when you try to use it, like Ethereum, I don't care what the price is. It's dumb money that's invested in something that can't possibly do anything of value. If it's something like Bitcoin, where it's a government hard money, right? It is a money that can't be inflated by the government, and it can't be censored, right? So I can spend it and nobody can steal it, right? It's a hard to steal money. Obviously, if you give up your private keys, it's been stolen, but that is by far the best system that we've ever conceived of keeping something safe, right? You have 24 words or whatever, or your very long private key. And as long as you don't share that with anybody, they can't steal your money. That's incredible. That's insanely valuable. And so first I figure out whether it's valuable or not. And then I look at the price, right? And if the price is above what I think it's worth, then I don't buy it. But if it's below what I think it's worth, then I buy it. That's the job of an entrepreneur. And so, the fact that the price is going down doesn't change the technology proposition, right? The usefulness of that tool. It just means there's a lot of people that don't understand what they have, unless it's overvalued. And I don't think it's overvalued. I mean, if it had, it's very binary, right? Like Bitcoin is designed to be global money. And it will become global money if we're right about economics, if our hypothesis that people don't want to have their stuff stolen from them, and that they will use a money that makes it harder to steal from them if they're given the choice, and that the government can't take away your choice to invest in Bitcoin. If those things are true, then it should be worth millions of dollars, right? Because you take the total amount of money that's being stored in the globe right now, the however many trillion it is, you divide it by the 21 million-ish Bitcoin that will ever exist, and you come up with a number that's really, really high. $5 million a coin, $4 million a coin, something like that. Or it should be at zero, right? There's really no in between. Other than the fact that it takes time for something to be adopted. So the fact that the price went from 20,000 to 5,000 doesn't mean that it will or won't work. It might be an indication that's going to take a little bit longer or a little bit faster. But if you look at the rate of adoption of the technology and the improvement of the technology, I mean, one of the things that I always tell people is, look, Amazon.com or McDonald's could not have accepted Bitcoin as a payment method 12 months ago. They really can't even accept it now. But when they can, when Lightning is finished and to the point where it really makes sense to try to roll it out, which I think we're at that point now. I think a lot of people are using BTC Pay Server. The Lightning channels are exploding. The total amount of Bitcoin on Lightning is going up. I think that somebody like Starbucks, if they want to, they can, as they're supposedly doing, invest in Lightning, build out point of sale, and actually be able to support the millions of transactions per second that Lightning offers. But that wasn't true, 6 months ago. It probably wasn't true 3 months ago. I'd have to go back and look at the timeline. So it's not surprising that that there's some volatility and there's some people that don't understand what's going on. The people that know what they're doing, they could read a white paper like the Lightning white paper and go, oh my gosh, this is solved. No, the software is not released yet. No, it's not built yet, but the design is so solid that I get it. It's going to freaking work. And then they can make smart decisions and say, yeah, I think this will work as a global currency. It will be able to scale. But a lot of people, they actually won't get it until they walk into a Starbucks and they buy something. And that's just the way it works, right? If you're not a technology specialist, how can you know that something's going to work until you actually see it working? Of course, that means that everybody that did see it working, because we've chosen to spend decades specializing in technology and be able to read a white paper and know the difference between Ethereum bullshit and Lightning, amazing piece of tech, those people are going to be able to profit from that gap in knowledge, from the fact that it's not very valued now because people don't understand that Lightning works, to the point where they're buying stuff at Starbucks and it does work. But that's okay. That's how we all work together to build great things and solve problems. So if you're not a tech expert, don't feel compelled to pretend to be one. Become one if you want, right? But it's not something that you're going to be able to do in the next 6 months and then be a great cryptocurrency trader.
It seems a lot like email and the fax machine. If you think back and you think, oh, I don't have anyone to email, it's not very useful. But you look like you're saying at the technology. Wow, to, from, a subject. You can put some text in there. Eventually, you can attach a file. This seems pretty useful, right? There's a
Yeah, exactly. And Bitcoin's unique because you could actually buy a piece of email, right? So you look at email and you say, yeah, this works a lot better. I think it's going to be adopted. Bitcoin has this weird property where part of what requires it to be used as a protocol like that requires that it has a digital asset that has value, and you can buy that digital asset. So yeah, it is a good opportunity for people that understand it. But I would also say if that was the case and we were back in the 90s and you didn't understand what email was, I wouldn't recommend that you invest in it, right? Even though I could have back then said, because I had some technology expertise, that this thing is, it works, everybody else would be doing what dumb money does, right? And they'd be looking at things like the price momentum or the number of developers that are working with it or something like that. And the problem with all of those indications that non-experts can look to is that they're easily manipulated. And that's what we've seen, right? We've seen price manipulation in Ethereum that has caused people to FOMO in and think, oh, this is useful. We've seen a lot of good PR put on by the Ethereum folks and the Ripple folks to make people think that there's value there. And if you can't tell the difference, then it's okay. Like there's a lot of useful things that you can do. There's a lot of very valuable problems that you can solve that nobody else can solve in your particular town, in your particular circumstance. It doesn't have to be this one. And I think what a lot of people are doing is they're just trying to play the lottery, and that's just not a good way to go, right? There's a certain sort of unintuitive, I don't know, weird aspect to wealth creation, and what it is that the more you focus on other people, the richer you tend to become yourself. It's not obvious that that's the way that it works, but if you set aside like fraud and government favors and just graft in general, that's how you get money. You take care of other people, you solve their problems. Maybe you solve a very small problem, but you solve it for 10 million people. You're going to make a lot of money in that process. So that's what people should be focused on. How can I make other people's lives better? And as a side effect, they'll reward you. They'll reward you with money. And incidentally, it makes you just a better human being, right? Like you can sleep at night. You're taking care of your family. At the end of the day, none of us want to die from cancer. And whether you're the president or you're, Vitalik and you're running some scam and maybe you've made tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, I'm not sure exactly how much he's pulled off. At the end of the day, we're all probably going to die of, some disease that would otherwise be prevented if the economy wasn't being screwed with and if people were free to just work and solve problems. So be one of those guys, right? Be one of those guys that's doing their small part to help people survive and thrive. And you're just going to be happier anyway, whether you have $100 million or whether you're 60 and you've only been able to scrape together $1 million, which you will be able to do if you actually focus on other people's problems for 40 years. I actually got to go, but I did want to, if it's all right, mention to check out mathbot.com, because that's a great way to get started in becoming a software developer. If you're in crypto right now and you're feeling wrecked and you're thinking, well, maybe I need to do something more useful with my life, great. Go out to mathbot.com. It'll take you a few hours to play the levels. You'll be programming some pretty complicated stuff and realize that coding is not something you need to be intimidated by. And then you can hit me up for next steps on Twitter at JWWeatherman _. And we'll coach you through it. I mean, you can be, in 50, this is the difference, right? Instead of trying to be a millionaire in 6 months, try to be a guy that's making 300K a year in 15 years. That's something that I guarantee I can help you do.
All right. Thanks so much, JW, for coming by, and be sure to check out MathBot at mathbot.com.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I'll see you guys later.
Talk to you later. And just going back to what JW was saying about email, if you think about it, back in 1994, and someone showed you email and someone showed you AOL mail, how would you even be able to tell the difference? They both have to and from. You can email anyone on the AOL server. It seems pretty useful. Why use that instead of that email thing that's more complicated and you have to put in different servers, that kind of thing? Remember, the reason that people stuck with email and they stuck with internet in general, and they didn't go to internet 2 or email 2 or email 3, even though in some ways Facebook Messenger and other software has taken over the functions of email. The reasons that people stuck with email in the first place and still stick with it now is because everyone's on email. This kind of thing happened. The same thing happened with the rollout of Facebook, where it just kind of grew, and pretty soon everyone had a Facebook account, just the way everyone had an email account. And you can pretty much email anyone. Maybe they won't read it, maybe they won't reply to it, but you can get it in their box. because of the way that email works, the way that email can just send to you. You don't need someone's permission to let them send you email. Bitcoin works very much the same way. Anyone can send you Bitcoin. You don't need to give them permission. So we were just going to check through the stories again. Price of Bitcoin down around 9% in the last 24 hours. That's $1 for 19,661 Satoshis. We're getting very close to the 20,000 Satoshi barrier. Is this capitulation, something like this? Dan, you're joining us. Can you see us live on the internet?
I think so. How you doing, Tom?
Doing good. We're joined by Dan, the Crypto Raptor. I was just about to tell everyone the sad news that FundStrat's Tom Lee predicts Bitcoin recovery, but lowers his year-end target to 15K. This is down from $25,000. Dan, what were you going to do with your money when Bitcoin went back up to $25,000 at the end of the year?
I think I would have taken myself on a nice little holiday. It's definitely been a roller coaster of a year, that's for sure. But I'd be happy to see 15K. I just don't think it's feasible. I mean, especially now, geez. But I like his optimism. A-star effort on the optimism.
Tom Lee's vacation is going to be sleeping on his neighbor's couch. He made it all the way across the street, and he brought with him a 6-pack of beer. He has very low sights for his vacation. He's lowered his year-end vacation target to 6-pack and neighbor's couch. So it's unfortunate. Yes, they are saying it's because of the ICO crackdown. Other people are saying it's because of Bitcoin Cash. And they think that now you can just fork Bitcoin and make all the Bitcoin you want. Is that true, Dan? Do Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Cash SV, do they count as Bitcoins?
Well, I think in the retail investors' perception, especially noobs, that it kind of does, and it's a confusing. Bitcoin's a confusing enough concept for any noob, but then throwing in Bitcoin Cash and then Bitcoin Cash SV, and then these different mixes, I think really does confuse it for the end user, and it probably puts them off as well. The infighting that happens and the quarrels that happen. People don't know what to believe. And so I think it's probably ultimately putting new investors off coming in.
The media is not with it. It's better when the media is saying, if you had bought Bitcoin this time last year, you would have $20,000. If you had bought Bitcoin this time 4 years ago, you'd have $200,000. We're on the way up. They love to make those articles, but they never write them on the way down.
Well, I think whenever the Bitcoin price moves, there's always people see a reason to put next to it, whether it's a particular bit of news. But there's actually been some really good news this year for Bitcoin in general, and it's so it's interesting to see the price dump so much, but the infrastructure kind of grows so much. I mean, Lightning Network growing exponentially, and that's going to help solve scalability problems, and that's one of the biggest gripes on the way up. And now we've got a solution that's coming in place, but everything's still dumping. And I think that kind of shows that the retail investors and the people outside are the ones that have kind of stopped buying, which is why everyone's kind of holding all the way down.
It sounds like you're going to negotiate with Santa Claus there, get us the Bitcoin price to rise by Christmas. Bitcoin has been a very good boy this year, developing more users on the Lightning Network. May or may not have some crazy Satoshi Nakamotos running around. Some of them very right-wing on their Twitter. Other ones threatening to bury their opponents and going wild with their own currency with the great vision and power of the vision. And still others just sitting back, waiting for Bitcoin to happen or not happen. We'll just have to see. We're checking out the chat. Francisco says that the entire Bitcoin market is down because of Tone Vays. He's a really good analyst. Sometimes he likes to pretend that Tone manipulates the market just for fun. Very few people know that Tone has the secret hidden power to manipulate the market, and that it's actually a big joke the way he does his show and he pretends to predict things and all these kind of things. he's actually controlling it with a superpower like Marvel Comics, and he can just make the price. So it's always been funny for him. It's just a game.
Yeah, it is interesting how we kind of when the price moves, we try and put a reason to it, and even when almost when people are predicting the markets, it's almost a bit of a horoscope game, I think, in that you remember their hits and forget the losses. But I think it's pretty unfortunate that Tone Short got stopped by BitMEX.
Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah, the one trade of the year.
Yeah.
It's such a I'm sorry to laugh at Tone and his short, but it's just such a noob move to go back to the movie Hackers and to talk about, what a hacker is and what a person who lives off a certain kind of society is, and just to put out on a big sign like, this is my account, this is my whole thing, and then at the same time be promoting it for your referral fees. It's just such a noob move all over. It's sad to see him caught up in that, but it is these obvious things that we forget. If you think about the Dread Pirate Roberts was allegedly caught because he went on a forum and started asking people what you would do to start your own darknet market, and how would you handle this, and all these kind of things. So it does happen to everybody, even the best or the worst of us.
Didn't
That
you
kind of
put some codes, some actual code from one of the clinches I recall was he put, how do I solve this problem? But put actual code from Silk Road, and they were able to, to see that it was clearly, Silk Road. That was one of
Wow.
It's unfortunate. You've got to really cover your tracks well. I've been watching a lot of Forensic Files.
Mm.
So, it's incredible the level of kind of different areas they cover now in Forensic Files, and it's becoming the same with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. The blockchains are public ledgers, so blockchain auditing and kind of traceability of funds is, it's going to be a huge industry, especially sort of people wanting to see where funds came from and linking things back, and the forensics around blockchain.
Exactly. They're always saying Bitcoin's so good for crime, but I keep seeing it as not good for crime the way the blockchain works. Having a transaction for everything in there, being able to trace this to this and that to that. And, oh, you bought a Slurpee here. Boom, we geotagged it. Now we chased your whole line. Like, seems not that good for criminals, I don't think. But I do think the problem is there'll be other versions of Bitcoin. There'll be new versions of this and that. And those might be good for criminals. And it would be essentially Bitcoin's fault, because Bitcoin is providing this background value channel. In the old days, you couldn't trade your goofy stuff on the internet for anything. It might have been World of Warcraft gold. It might have been a sword from Diablo. It could have been a really good account in Warcraft or one of those things. You couldn't trade it for anything because anyone could say, "Oh, I got it," and then they could cancel on you. And then you'd have to go through PayPal's process. You just have to say, "I gave them the sword. I gave them the account. It's gone. I can't, get back to it. That's how I know I gave it to them." That's not proof of anything. And now with Bitcoin or even Zcash or Monero or one of these other cryptocurrencies that might be anonymous, you can pay and you can prove that you paid, and you should be able to get your thing. You should be able to prove it through any kind of escrow service. So it is totally different having this background of value, having this Bitcoin network where at the end you could go and you could trade your Warcraft credits for something else, trade that for something else, and eventually trade it for Bitcoin, get real value, and exit the network. If that went away, all of those other things would break down because you wouldn't be able to go in and out. So it still does matter where you connect to Bitcoin on the fiat, where people trade it, although there's not the ATMs KYC, the local Bitcoins KYCs, Coinbase KYCs. There's not a lot of non-KYC Bitcoin going around. So even when you do, buy someone $20 of drinks at the Bitcoin meetup or things like that, it's a good idea to do that. That's the only way that we're going to mix up this Bitcoin and not have it all directly linked to where it was bought, at least until other solutions come along like Monero or Zcash or things like it.
And wallets like Samurai Wallet, so for masking transactions.
Yeah. Samurai Wallet, other wallets could work together or work against each other to track down these coins or make them more untrackable. I know it's been far too easy for companies like Chain Analysis. They just got together and pretty much did what Google did back in the day, download a complete copy of the web. They downloaded a copy of the blockchain. They saw where everything linked together. And now they can just, go ahead and monitor everyone, transact everyone. They buy a little data here or there. They start identifying those addresses, and boom, they've got themselves a little $1 million company right there. Nice work, Chain Analysis. But bad work, Bitcoin, for letting it happen. At the same time, though, you can't build a network like this in the dark. It's hard enough to build all the things they built publicly for Bitcoin. Can you imagine building them all privately? And when you make a mistake, you can't even see that you've made a mistake because it's all private, things like this. So I think there's definitely a lot of that going on in Bitcoin. People are saying Diablo swords are now useless because it's getting mobile. Diablo is wrecked. Oh no, the market of Diablo swords has gone down. They're saying, make sure to pay your crypto tax. They'll link your addresses to find you in 2049. If you paid a tip or bought coffee in Bitcoin, you just might be a tax criminal. Uh-oh, there's lots of trouble out there. I know there's even some conferences that only accept food payments in Bitcoin. That's going to be a big problem someday.
That's an interesting point, though, about they'll link your addresses and find you in 2049, because once these audit programs become this good, they're going to arguably be quite what's the word? They're going to be quite efficient at trading tax back. So it's going to lead to a lot more honesty, or the opposite, a lot more hidden services.
There's a great old Auden poem, and at the end he says, why should he have been unhappy? He certainly had nothing to hide. They're like watching him the whole time, and the society is very happy to be watching him, and everyone will be happy to be watched because certainly we have nothing to hide, right, Dan?
Well, it depends if you've ever had any Bitcoin. Personally, I don't have any, and I've never had any, unfortunately.
There it is. And I think that's a good time to remind people of our fundraiser here on Tallycoin. You can help donate to send mad Bitcoins to the Frankfurt Bitcoin Conference, the Malta Blockchain Conference, and all the way back home to Las Vegas so he can talk on his good microphone again. The fundraiser has gone down a little bit this morning. I think we might have had some theft, some kind of insider job action. Maybe just the price of Bitcoin went down, right? But we've had 17 donations received, so there's still a chance for you to be in the first 20. The first 20 people to donate to send Mad Bitcoins home so that he can do shows like this for you. Our goal is around 0.39 Bitcoin, and so far we've raised 0.05. You can go ahead and donate right now. Test it out. This is a live updating program. It's called Tallycoin. You can try it out yourself at tallyco.in. All you need is a Bitcoin address and a goal and something that you want, like a guitar or guitar lessons. And you can raise money for it on Tallycoin. Tallycoin doesn't take any cut of your fundraiser. No cut at all. That's really amazing, isn't it? The power of Bitcoin and Tallycoin.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's cool. It's like it's a Block Explorer extension that just really, it's really simplistic. Yet it's so cool for fundraising. Being able to put a QR code and anyone being able to click on it, especially when the whole world, Bitcoin is ubiquitous. It's going to be really good for fundraising, I think.
I think it's a great idea. I'm a big supporter of Tallycoin, and it's okay. You can pause the screen. You can donate later. We'll put that back up later in the show. We're checking out the chat. People say to check out Wasabi Wallet. Their Bitcoin privacy built right in. Dan was saying that. I don't know if they have an Apple version of Wasabi Wallet yet or Samurai Wallet. People seem to not be writing enough Apple versions of the wallet, so I can try them out. They say Ron Paul wants to remove all taxes on crypto. Ron Paul 2020. Well, I'm not sure that Ron Paul is going to run for president anymore. He's tried that several times already, but I do like the idea of removing all taxes. It's kind of thing where you're not going to be able to enforce that anyway. So you're going to have a hard time enforcing that anyway. Justin Charles says that he's sold all his coins. He took his loss, and he's going to buy back when Bitcoin's at 3K and Litecoin's at $20. So we'll see how that goes. It's always tough. I hate to put you in that thought pattern, but whenever I sell, it always goes up, and whenever I buy, it always goes down. So I don't know if that happens to you, but good to maybe spend a couple of days away from it if you've made your choice. If you want to stop, remember, yes, you are kind of still losing money when it goes down, but if you want to wait for it to go back up, if you still have a good job, if you have a good amount of savings, if you're in a safe position, you've got a couple months of rent saved up, you can do that and you can hold on to your investment. Otherwise, you could try to sell and catch it when it goes to the bottom. Remember, no one knows where the bottom is, and no one knows when the bottom is. So it can be tough. Boogers guy says, which pays better, Walmart or Target? I would go outside the lines. I would say try to get a job at In-N-Out Burger. That's what I'm thinking. It's the food seems pretty clean. I mean, you're still cooking food, but I hear they pay more than minimum wage at In-N-Out Burger. I've always said I could be a sandwich artist. I could work at Subway, although I think you have to memorize how many pieces of meat you put on each thing. There's a lot of rules, a lot of speculation as to
like a cocktail flavour, but for Subway. Imagine that you could make that into a new kind of Subway niche where they'd flip the rolls and throw in the salami and stuff.
Oh yeah, throw it up in the air, try to get more tips.
Yeah.
Like, talk to the people, use my radio voice to make money at Subway. I'm thinking that's a good idea. I think that's a good way to go. Welcome, ladies. Welcome to Subway. This is a great place for you to get your sandwich on. That's right. The chat agrees. They're like, Subway is the way to go. Let's see. James says it sucks that some are in for manipulation of their own personal vendetta. I feel bad for all those who kept more than their profit in. Yes, it is too bad. The price is up. The price is down. I know I was just talking to JW Weatherman there, and I think JW had famously got some Bitcoin at 18,000. So he knows what it's like to be up and to be down. And he remains positive about his investment. He still thinks the technology of Bitcoin is solid, and he can just hold this out, maybe even add some more at the bottom, bring down the price of those other coins. What do you think, Dan?
Well, each to their own. I mean, obviously, if you were in before January, there's January's a point where is quite a familiar story that people wish they'd sold back then. But it also depends on your situation, and if you want to play the market short term, long term. I know that if I trade too frequently, sometimes I'm trading for the sake of it and thinking because I need to make a decision when I actually don't need to make one, and so that can I end up trading against myself. But then I also find that I'm a good contra indicator because I've made some great losses this year.
We're seeing a lot of good ideas in the chat, a lot of good solutions there. They say you can drive for Amazon. You deliver boxes for $15 an hour. You just have to pass the initial drug test. I like the way he says only the initial one. Yeah. Once you're in, you're good. So he's saying you only have to get urine that first time. They're saying Walmart, Target, Subway. People say there's no bull run this year. Bull run is canceled, and JH says he's going to try out Wasabi on the Mac soon. He's been hearing great things. He uses only Samurai on Android, the best devs ever. It is nice, but we do still need an easy to use Bitcoin wallet, one that doesn't ask you a dozen questions when you log in, one that could slowly grow with the user. So when the user starts out and they have like $10 in it, you don't have to hassle them about 2FA. You don't have to make sure they have a backup sent to their email. You can chill. It's like $10 worth. And I agree. If the market goes up and up and up, and the person suddenly has hundreds of dollars in their little toy Bitcoin account, yes, you should email them. But too many of these wallets are like right away. They're like, you're using Fort Knox. This is the most secure product imaginable. Now write down these 25 words in perfect order. And a normal person is like, I just wanted to try out this goofy Bitcoin thing. The guy said he was going to send me $1, and I don't want to write down 24 words right now. Like, we have to bring them into these slowly. We have to have big, easy to use buttons. People keep making the buttons smaller and changing them to more and more obscure icons. Like, if you want to send something, you need to know that paper airplane is send. If you don't know that, you have no chance of using our software. So maybe we could just have Bitcoin with an arrow pointing away from it, and another one with the arrow pointing to Bitcoin. That one's called receive. The other one would be called send. You don't have to go to 20 years of psychology class to learn out. We should have big, simple buttons for people that don't read, so they can use the Bitcoin wallet. Am I the only one? I guess I'm the only one. Everyone else thinks the button should be smaller and the interfaces should look like techno, like you're trying to write a new techno album to get to use your wallet. Right, Dan?
Well, I think the usability is a key thing, getting the rest of the world involved. And one thing, when I was explaining it to my mum, and she's a good sort of indicator of someone who's quite, afraid of new technology, but is willing to give it a go. So it's quite easy to convince her, eventually, once she kind of gets over the learning curve. But with Bitcoin, it was the idea that you have to have this huge address that's not memorizable. She didn't kind of initially understand the concept that you generate new addresses for, your pseudo anonymity. And so it's almost like one of the things that would be good from her perspective as teaching it to an end user is the ability to link it to an identity rather than a specific address or a QR code. That kind of almost seems a bit alien. So I think part of adoption is kind of humanizing the currently very computer aspect of it, which is just random letters and numbers.
And this is going to be the same for the Lightning Network. Right now, Lightning wallets are pretty confusing and hard to use. In the future, all of these advanced steps and things that people talk about, opening a channel, all this kind of thing, that's all going to be gone. You're just going to click agree a couple of times, and your Lightning wallet's going to work. People are saying, what's the best pawn store online? It's tough to get a good deal at a pawn store, especially if you're selling it, not pawning it. It's better to sell on eBay to the direct end user, something like that, get a better taste of the cut, but you have to do more work. But again, if you are down to the last minute, pawn store is a good idea. Get that money for rent. Maybe you could sell blood or semen. Is there a Bitcoin wallet that accepts blood or semen? Dan, have you heard of any Bitcoin wallets moving into this fastly growing market?
I think that we've got our next two ICO ideas there on a plate. One for blood-linked semen, blood-linked Bitcoin, and one for semen-linked Bitcoin.
Obviously, you couldn't mix the two. That would be a disaster. So everyone has to keep their containers separate, or it would have to have two different containers that you could attach to your iPhone.
On the chain.
Oh, obviously, you'd put it on the chain, and you would put a little secure nozzle on top, and then you could send it in directly to the company. You could get credit of your blood or your other things that you're selling. AR is a little grossed out, but again, we're talking about desperate times here. I don't know if you guys have heard, but Bitcoin is no longer a store of value according to Forbes because you can just print more Bitcoin in these forks. So it's like, yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. It's like you could print more pennies, but you can't print more pennies. You could print monopoly money, therefore fiat dollars are worthless. They're just printing so much monopoly money today. I think that the US dollar is in real trouble from all of this monopoly printing that's been going on.
Well, there was that politician. I think it was shared today or yesterday. I think it was the ECB sort of meeting talking about quantitative easing and how it's just printing money and fractional reserve lending. I'm not sure if it was recent, but it was shared today, and it was all about that aspect of just inflating money and how that should be criminal in itself. And that's really, really interesting. But one thing I used to kind of to convince people not convince people into Bitcoin, but the kind of theory of Bitcoin is the fact that it can't be inflated. And so when people heard about the Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash split that were that I'd been sort of trying to get into Bitcoin, they said, aha, now you're printing Bitcoin. In fact, you've copied it, and now they say you as in like that you are Bitcoin, but that we've just done whatever quantitative easing is just by forking a new coin. So it is quite interesting that there are similarities there between quantitative easing and printing money and also forking a coin to do what's ultimately the same thing.
There are some connections, but it is not actually new Bitcoin. It looks like it. It has the brand name and it's confusing. There's a lot of this Bitcoin jackass and Bitcoin motherfucker. All these new tokens are coming out. I know that's a sweet name. Don't steal that. That's mine. But yeah, I've even heard that it would be a good idea. People should just make their own Bitcoin, tell people about it, get donations, take money for it, do the whole thing. If you have the right kind of website, you can just take in the Bitcoin. It would be pretty sweet. You could call it Bitcoin Joe. Obviously, Bitcoin Joe is the best of Bitcoin. Matt Smith's got his own fork, Bitcoin mother effer coin. They say the Dow Jones is joining Bitcoin, and that the general market is driving down the price of Bitcoin. What do you think about that, Dan? Is it the straight market?
Well, it's interesting because I do think there's a kind of, aren't we due a crash like soon? Isn't it every sort of 8 to 10 years? And obviously there was 2000, 2001, then there was 2007, 2008, and we're now 10 years on. We haven't had one. And it seems kind of current political situation from like here from the UK, it's all about Brexit. From the US, it's all about the sort of Trump and Democrats versus Republicans and how that's sort of playing out. And there's loads of other kind of stuff around the world that could cause unrest in the markets. But it does seem we're overdue a crash, and I think that is kind of weighing on people's minds in general, because they're not. Maybe not the retail investor isn't thinking, oh, I better put my money into Bitcoin. If they've never done it before, I better put it into Bitcoin instead of having it in cash or whatever. So I think
there are two sides to this. Certainly, we might be due a crash. I'm not sure if they just occur like weather patterns, but they are cyclical. Part of the reasons we switched to a Federal Reserve and a central banking monetary strategy was to reduce the number of crashes, and also in an attempt to reduce the damage, so that we could go up less and then go down less. I'm not sure that that's ever worked, but that was part of the thinking and part of the ideas here. They do want the audience wants a direct and final answer. They want to know why the price has gone down. So let's add everything up. Let's put it all together. Dan, you got your thinking hat on. I've got my thinking hat on. I think we're ready here. So he says, why did Bitcoin go down? So number one, they want to say it's Craig and Roger. There was a rumor that they were both going to have to sell some of their Bitcoin to finance their fight of Bitcoin ABC versus Bitcoin SV. There's a possibility they are going to finance their fight by buying servers to mine their coin, Amazon servers or other servers. It's possible they were going to finance their fight by buying their own coin. If Satoshi went into the market and bought all of the Satoshi Vision coins that were on the market, maybe he could drive up the price of Satoshi's Vision. Same thing if he bought up a bunch of miners and he was mining Satoshi's Vision, and he could say it's more popular because of the miners. So there is a possibility of an arms deal on both sides, leading to a bunch of people selling Bitcoin, which would drive Bitcoin through the triangle. Everyone was watching the triangle. And you know that what the triangle does is it focuses to a point. And at that point, we go up or we go down. And no one knows if we're going up or down. But if this Roger and Craig fight occurred at a bad point in the triangle, then all the technical traders who just follow around like a bunch of lemmings would follow that, and they would sell off. And that would cause the prices to go down further. Then a bunch of noobs who don't know anything would freak out and sell off, because they're always getting caught up in these large market moves that they don't understand. And that could be driving down the price of Bitcoin. Also, like Dan was saying, with this, with the Dow Jones and the normal market going down, there's other people who might want to make sure that the price of Bitcoin goes down every time the normal market goes down, because if it didn't, and people realize that you could free yourself from the normal market by investing into Bitcoin, that would be really bad. That would be like an advertisement for this is how you can get out of the normal market, which has you trapped. So a lot of those reasons, or it could have been to satisfy Tone's short, or to drive him crazy because he cost his short, or somebody else's short, or somebody else's market move. They're saying it could also be regulation fear. Remember, regulation, they think it'll be a good thing. They think that once regulation's in, everything will be good. So
Well, it
regulation.
legitimizes, doesn't it? It as soon as it's regulated, it means it's being taken seriously.
Mhm.
Whereas at the moment we're still seemingly on the precipice of whether Bitcoin is being taken seriously by global governments, and so regulation is that kind of help over the cliff or the cliff's edge, so that we're into the territory where it's taken seriously and there's a proper, formation of services around it. So I think regulation ultimately is good. I mean, I worked in my last job as a business analyst working on sort of regulatory framework that was actually a result of the financial crash. So around data, financial controls and governance. And I just think that once you apply the framework around that, you're taking it shows that you're taking it seriously, and that makes it kind of a lot more appealing to the public, because they know that there's certain things that help them be protected when they're investing, things that people don't have at the moment, luxuries that they don't have at the moment in terms of protection around investing in cryptocurrencies.
Well, until there's one totally regulated, totally acceptable cryptocurrency, you can always do what Forbes is trying to do to us. Forbes is basically trying to say once again that Bitcoin is not the real Bitcoin, and that there will be another Bitcoin that will come along that will be better. And that Bitcoin was our first try, and it was our MySpace, it was our it was our Friendster, it was our little test. And we had our little test, and all those hackers and the cyberpunks and that guy who invented Bitcoin all by himself, they were all wrong, right? They were all wrong. The business people were right. The real Bitcoin turned out it was Ripple, right? Or it was the IBM version of Ripple. Like, oh, you were so close. But that's what one of the stories they want to keep selling until Bitcoin's totally regulated, until Bitcoin can't fall over from one of these crashes. They're going to keep selling this Bitcoin is dead. Bitcoin is not the real Bitcoin story. What do you think, Dan?
I got sidetracked in my mind, thinking about how cool it would be if you did like an airdrop, which was using, you could only redeem via Monopoly money.
Proof of Monopoly money.
Way off the track, but
well, it is. Monopoly money in its own way is rare. I don't think the new sets have Monopoly money. They use credit cards, the little fancy sets. The old sets from certain years, they're not printing any more money with that. The only thing is, did they print a year on the money? I don't think they did, but if they had, boy, you would have yourselves a collector's market right there. I remember as a kid, they gave me some Disney bucks to spend at Disneyland one time, and I looked at them and I was like, why is Disneyland allowed to print money? What's going on here? Very clearly, like, this is designed to look like money. I know what money looks like. And I thought it was funny. And if you looked out 2 years later, if you had held on to your Disney bucks instead of spending them, they're out of print now, and you can sell Disney bucks on eBay for at least twice the face value of the Disney bucks. So while it wasn't a stock in the Disney company, it is funny that I could have just held my Disney bucks and made quite a nice tidy profit someday. So things can be valuable even if they aren't designed to be valuable.
I like that. Everyone jokes about Monopoly money. One day it's worth more than real money. That's literally exactly what I was thinking. Like, suddenly you were talking about the new Bitcoin, and I was thinking, what if, ironically, Monopoly money is actually the new Bitcoin? Like in the new world, like, or I don't know, there's some sort of dystopian future where all money gets burnt, and then the computer money goes down, and we've already burnt all the fiat money, so all that's left is Monopoly money to use. That would be incredible.
Everyone raids their house. They're all digging through their closets. Where's the game? Where's the game? What do you mean? We played it last week. You played it last week? Or did you leave it out? Where is it? Where is it? And then they find it and they're saved. They found the Monopoly money. They can live for a few more weeks. It'll be
Yeah. Sorry.
yeah, Pogs are good. Alpha's back in Pog form. But I think there's more in the Monopoly money. I think that if you think about that terrible Adam Sandler movie that I wish I could unsee, I think I've blocked out the title. But it's the space alien one with all the spaceships from Space Invaders and all that kind of thing. Pixels, I think it is. And these space aliens just come down to destroy Earth. It would be great if there was like a animated computer version of the Monopoly Man, and that he had come down to destroy Earth with his spaceships, and that's why he's only accepting Monopoly money. He wants Earth to pay him back for like all of the games ever. And of course, there'll be a massive game of Monopoly at the end where like our hero will have to play. And
well, he would be the universal Monopoly banker, and he would be pissed at Earth for printing Monopoly money without his consent. That's why he'd raid it.
Very political. I'm not sure if you could get past that, past the censors there. There was supposed to be a Monopoly movie with Ridley Scott directing it, and it had all these crazy surreal colors, and it looked like Toys, the movie, or something else. But yeah, I think we could pitch them this plot. I think it's better than the plot they had. And also, they had that Battleship movie where the battleship was like in real life, and Jumanji's been a movie a couple of times now. There's people are ready for these video game themed takeover movies. I think they're doing well.
Just on Pogs, something that's really interesting about that is that I remember being a kid and playing Pogs in school, and I used to buy them with my own pocket money. But like when you traded them, you either traded them for more different Pogs or you ascribed money to that. And no adult ever taught me or taught us that we should ask for more or less, physical money, fiat money, when trading our Pogs. It's just something we naturally did as kids, and I think that's interesting about how we start to prescribe the monetary value of something to almost everything. And as young as sort of sub 10 years old or whatever, you had Pogs, trading them for cash rather than just the actual Pog value.
Well, and for some reason, this Pog or that Pog or this baseball card or that baseball card would be better than the other ones. They're both little pieces of cardboard. They both have similar value, but they're getting used to the idea that this one is better than that one because that guy's a better player or he's more in demand. And then it turns out all the baseball cards were worthless because everyone kept theirs. What had happened in the previous generation is that everyone's had been wiped out. Their grandmother had found them in the attic and thrown them out, or someone cleaned off the garage and stole them, or they just burned them or just destroyed them in general. But in the next generation, they told everyone, keep your baseball cards. These are worth money. And so when we all looked down in 20 years, we all had boxes full of baseball cards and no one had any money. So, I don't know, metaphor, right? Bitcoin, tulips. Everyone likes to say that Bitcoin will go to zero just like tulips. But show me where you can get a tulip for nothing. You have to pay money for those. Even in Amsterdam, you have to pay for the bulbs. Come on, get with it. Tulips are still worth something.
It never quite reached zero, and there's still a market. Yeah, hopefully Bitcoin doesn't do that and just goes, to almost zero. But
Bitcoin is difficult because it takes up so much space. So you want to pay people to get rid of your Bitcoin. You're like, clear out this wallet, empty it out. It's taking up too much space. I want it gone. I'll pay you to take this Bitcoin from me. And they're saying in the chat now, We Smoke Bitcoin says, and that can lead to how everything now is a collection and nothing can be fun and you have to collect everything. I think this is a good point. There is a kind of a mania in our society about collecting things. Part of it I like in the new video game I'm playing, of course, Red Dead Redemption 2. And there's tons of things to collect, not just, guns and ammo and hats and stuff like that. There's cigarette cards. If you find a pack of cigarette, it comes with a card, and you have one of 6 cards, and you need to collect them all now. And it could kind of drive you insane if you were really that into collecting them. And it's also crediting this idea that everything will be worth something someday. Even now, when I go to these museums and I see all my old computers in a museum, and I think, oh, I should have held on to those old computers. My old computer would have been worth money. But really, they only need 2 or 3 of those old computers to go in the museums. So they're probably not all going to be worth money. And especially right now, I'm looking at some old monitor cables, wondering if I'm ever going to use those again. Wonder if they still make that kind of monitor. We're saving a lot of things that probably aren't worth money. Um, to go from traveling the world in a suitcase to being back here surrounded by all my stuff. Of course, I'm wondering, what is all this stuff for? Do I really need all this stuff? But maybe you had dreams you were going to buy more stuff. Why don't you guys tell me in the chat, what were you going to buy with Bitcoin that is now in danger because the price has gone down a little bit? Were you going to buy a Lamborghini? Oh, I heard a horrible joke on Lamborghinis. Dan, is this your joke? Can I steal it from you on the air?
Go for it. I don't know if it's my joke.
All right, somebody was telling me some terrible joke. Oh no, it wasn't you. Maybe it was you though. So says, you know why Bitcoin owners prefer Lamborghinis to Ferraris? And the guy thought about it a lot, and he said, yeah, they're both sports cars, they're both Italian, they're both very nice. Why would the Bitcoin owners prefer that? And they say, because Ferrari is owned by fiat. Oh, that's good. No, I think it was Charlie Shrem's joke. I think I'm stealing from Charlie Shrem. But he told it at a conference, so that's a fair game, I'd say. But yes, were you going to buy a Lamborghini? This guy says, Lamball, let's see, Andy Warhol boxed everything, even his trash, and it all has value today. Well, Andy Warhol, was kind of a genius and ahead of his time on that. I'm not sure that the rest of our trash is going to be that valuable. But he'd actually do dated boxes, and everything that he had on his desk, he would work out, with the newspapers, magazines, all the kind of media of the day. He'd have it all swept into a box, cataloged and stored, all identical types of boxes. But then again, he was that was his thing. He was into copying things.
Box fetish.
Yeah, well, and his boxes, the box thing there, like for example, like he's saying, if we had Andy Warhol's desk from November 19th, 1962, it is kind of unique. It can never be recreated. Although if there's a half-rotten donut in there and it's ruined the whole box, maybe they shouldn't keep the pieces of food. But it is funny to think how, for someone like Andy Warhol, he could create value. But for someone else, it wouldn't be any value there. If you've seen the movie Fight Club, you know how there's the guy, how he's reading those stories. I am Jack's pancreas. I get cancer. I kill Jack. All that kind of stuff. There's actually a guy who writes stories like that, and he was a hoarder, and he lived in a house just like the house that they're in with all the newspapers and everything. And that guy would just sit at home writing all these stories from the perspective of his organs. I am Jack's lungs. I breathe in, bringing in oxygen particles. I breathe out, getting rid of carbon dioxide. Da, da, da. He like tell all these stories from the perspective of Jack's organs. But that's a real guy, and he's real crazy. People are saying in the chat, I'd always take a Ferrari over a Lambo anyway. Ferrari has more class. Lambo says I'm a dumb kid that's probably a douche. So maybe that's part of the Lambo thing, though. It always seemed to me that if you even wanted a Lambo, you're kind of a douche. Like, who cares? Like, I guess if you're into sports cars and you like to drive fast cars, maybe you get a fast car. Or if you want to get like an antique car, so you get an old Mustang or something like that. I guess I could kind of understand that. I guess I'm not really a car guy. I would just get another computer. And even the computers, like I've started to get less and less into them. Like my laptop's covered with stickers, but the rest of them not so much. They're starting to become commodity hardware, where I just want a newer, faster one. And they look great. And my new one right now is totally amazing, and it floats there in the space and everything. But still, I just need faster, better computers. I'm thinking about getting the new phone, all that kind of stuff. AR says he wouldn't mind a Tesla. I agree. Tesla might be good, but we're starting to see the pain of Tesla already. I hate to say I predicted this and I called it, but I predicted it and I called it. Tesla's having problems with the small things. The door handles are getting stuck in the cold weather. The windows are, bubbling up and leaking. Other stuff like this. The basic parts of a car that aren't the amazing electrical system are starting to fail. So I think that Tesla might have been better partnering with someone like Toyota and providing the electric drivetrain for Toyota or for Nissan, and letting the people that build all the boring parts of the car keep building them. And I know they're trying to use a lot of generic hardware, but they still have some of their own. And they say it hasn't even gotten cold yet, that it's much colder to get. What do you think, Dan? Are you having any problems on your Tesla?
I'd love to have a Tesla. I like the idea that it's got this self-drive, sort of mode. And there's been a few videos. I think the guy was actually driving through like traffic in Sacramento, and he was just
Sacramento. Woo!
He was asleep at the wheel, but the Tesla was driving just in traffic. And I think that's kind of a really cool concept. And the fact that, once they all become automated, the 2 seats will end up facing inwards, or 3 seats. So, they'll be self-driven, and it'll be more like you're just sat in the back of a kind of limo almost. I think that's awesome, partly because people can't really, cooperate when driving very well. And so once it's automated, imagine how much quicker and more efficient things are going to be just with computers. Once they get good enough and they're safe, just kind of weaving these patterns, weaving into each other, rather than kind of the road rage happening and someone dropping the ball and then that sort of thing. There's a really cool actual, I think it was in Japan, they did a demonstration of how humans cause traffic and themselves. And they just have a giant ring, and all you needed to do was drive around this ring at 30 miles an hour. And there were multiple times where they just caused a traffic jam, even though 70% of the ring was free. The cars were just stuck in one area, just sort of getting all frustrated with each other, when all they needed to do was just drive around the circle at 30. So yeah, I welcome automation for sure.
I've definitely heard it's going to change things. They're saying a lot more people are going to have sex in cars while they're moving now. And this is a new human safety problem. And like you said, they're going to turn the seats inward, but they might even need to do other things with the seats. And
that'll be like Boomer V2.
That's right. Well, and remember, the original baby boom was because people had the option to have sex in their cars. Previously, no one had a private compartment that they could move around, that they could put in a forest, that they could move around at night. Early cars even came with curtains to hide the peeking eyes. And they were like pretty much just like little sex shops on wheels. And it led to a whole bunch more babies than we would have had before, because it was a rather uptight Puritan society trying to keep population under control, except when you need about 5 kids to work out on the farm. Other than that, cars were amazing. So cars could be amazing again. I wonder if that's what Elon Musk is thinking about at Tesla. Someday, if only all the cars would be self-driving, automatic, and electric, we could have tons more babies being made in these cars. So.
Well, we know when cars first started, were first invented, they had to, certainly in the UK, they had to someone would walk in front with a red flag. Maybe that was because they were replacing red flag with the sort of red light. And that was like when electricity was pretty sparse and they didn't have mobile lighting, someone would use a red flag instead of a red light, and they'd have the curtained wagon behind for the shaggin' wagon.
It's definitely the first thing that mankind was thinking about. I don't have to drive the horse anymore. Maybe I can finally get some nookie on this wagon when it's a rockin', don't come a knockin', right?
I just read We Smoke Bitcoins is America was built on porn, but in a real kind of America was built on porn. And we chuckle. That's awesome.
Oh, I think it's true. It's
really, you just need to look back to it. You saw a lot of the statues of the ancient times over your travels in Europe, Tom. So what did you find about the fact that the world was built on porn based on the statues?
Oh, some very well-built ladies. I'm surprised many of these statues can be in public. They don't have people celebrating them and looking at them all the time. I also liked what Neil said here. Sex with robots in self-driving cars. Not good future.
Oh
And
no, like Johnny Cab from the modified Johnny Cab from oh goodness, from Total Recall.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no,
What
but
service would you like? Uh-oh.
Neil's ready to go one further, and AR's with him. Mobile brothels pay in Bitcoin. So the robot is just there already when the Uber picks you up. Uber just picks you up. The robot takes care of you, and you get to your next destination. This is the end of civilization right here. This is not good. Matt Smith says, if it weren't for the moves in porn, none of us would be here. Porn maybe taught people how to have sex. Maybe it made it harder for them to have sex. I don't know. There's different stories on that. And we are seeing that the younger people are not having sex. They'd rather just play with their phones. You have to think about this. There's a lot of like risk in person-to-person contact. If everyone remembers the future documentary Demolition Man, which of course you should all go out and rent. If you don't know that in the future all restaurants will be Taco Bell, they had, instead of having sex, they would actually put on this little virtual reality looking headset. And Sandra Bullock offered to have virtual sex with Sylvester Stallone, and he turned her down. He wanted to have old fashioned person to person sex, and she was not into it. So it's a very important film, Demolition Man. That one,
Seashells.
yeah, I still haven't figured out what the seashells are.
I bet there's a lot of theories on Reddit.
Dude, I'm sure Reddit should be able to explain to us what the heck those seashells are all about. But yeah, Demolition Man and Hot Tub Time Machine 2 are much more futuristic movies than you think they are, and you need to see them both. It's vital and important.
What's so good about Hot Tub Time Machine 2?
Well, you know how we're talking about self-driving cars? In Hot Tub Time Machine 2, the self-driving cars have become artificially intelligent, that they're autonomous. And each self-driving car is a person. And the self-driving cars have their own country. And it's made a deal and a trade negotiation with the US where the self-driving cars are allowed to kill a certain number of humans per year. And if the self-driving car doesn't like you, it can just negotiate through this union that you could be killed. There's a lot of very intelligent discussion and thought about self-driving cars going on right there in the middle of Hot Tub Time Machine 2. They also have, while we're talking about all this dirty, nasty sex stuff, they have an iPad with a hole in it. I'm not saying they're geniuses, but they just might be geniuses. So I'll let the future decide on that. But it's all out there in Hot Tub Time Machine 2. Ignore the future at your own risk.
What I also think is quite cool, I was thinking back about something I saw a few months ago actually, was, have you seen the idea of circular runways?
Landing airplanes in a circle?
Yeah. It's actually, it seems like it's quite logical. That's another kind of new thing they're looking into at the moment, which is planes landing in a circle, and it means you can't run out of runway. It's one good thing. But then also it's just a lot more flexible than a single runway, apparently. Obviously, it needs to be huge.
That sounds absolutely terrifying. It takes up less space. Some of the passengers get sick while we're spinning around. Some of them are quite deep. Like it's a whirlpool. Like it just keeps going in, and you just keep driving in and in and in. Circular runway like a tornado.
Oh yeah, centrifugal forces. No, not good.
The plane lands fine every time. The passengers are torn apart. It's like that they have that great new weapon. It's like the microwave gun or whatever. It can eliminate all of the human or carbon-based matter in the city, leaving you those important buildings and infrastructure, and you can just roll right in afterwards. So you're gonna have to be really well strapped in for this airplane that lands in a circle.
Yeah,
of
yeah.
of the
Well, no
whole.
more than you. Although, wasn't it Ryanair that were thinking of doing stand-up tickets? So I'm not sure what happens when you land, but
I thought they'd already done it. I don't believe that people could stop them. I think that standing room only tickets and just a big mass. It's bad enough now. You're walking by the people in first class. You're walking by the people in business class. You're walking by the people in just a big mob of humanity. And you just have to stand in this mob of people until your airplane gets there. That
how
sounds
that work?
horrible.
There'd be like snowboard like boots, or like you'd have ski boots that would like go and like they would plant you, and then you put your arms up, and like ropes would just tighten around your wrists, and everyone would just stand there like wobbling like chrysalises.
I think it just comes with how many people you could pack in there. I think you could pack so many people in there that they would be tight against each other and they would just push up against the bins, and maybe one or two passengers die every time you land. But this is a really cheap
Risk
fare.
reward ratio. Yeah, risk reward. Yeah.
Yeah, extraordinary deal. You have no idea how much money you're going to save.
So what's this? So how did you lose money with is this referring to Craig Wright, Andreas? Is someone saying they've lost money due to Craig?
Well, I think they're blaming this downturn on Craig Wright having to sell to get the weapons to do the Satoshi's vision.
So
Remember, just because it happens at the same idea, the same time, doesn't mean that it's definitely linked together. This could have just been, remember that big triangle that Bitcoin's been forming? We
big
got to the end of the triangle and it had to go up or it had to go down, and it happened that it went down. It doesn't even necessarily have to link up to this whole Satoshi's vision thing. But it's all about having a long-term investment horizon. If you were going to have to sell in the next couple months anyway, you might want to sell some now just in case it goes down more. If you have a longer investment horizon, like you can afford to live for a year and not touch your investments, that might be the way to go on this one if you could just wait it out. But then again, people thought that the 18K was going to go up to 32K and all those kind of things. We were still holding and waiting for that. So
there's a really good clip by I actually posted it earlier this year. It's in the film Gold, and it's about. Have you seen that? It's got Matthew McConaughey. It's about a guy who trades gold on the markets, and this gold company. And they said they struck gold, and eventually it turns out they were just fraudsters. But there's this clip where this guy walks in the office and Matthew McConaughey's there and he's shuffling paper or whatever, and they've just said that the company's going down, and he's like, "Just please tell me you sold a little bit," and he just goes, "I thought it was just going to keep on going up," and that's exactly what everyone I know said. It's like, I was like, "Well, did you sell either?" And they're like, "No. I thought it was just going to keep on going up." And you kind of look back and you think, wow, what a state of euphoria that you're actually in to not kind of realize how kind of out of place that price was, that you would think, oh, it's just going to keep on going up.
it's always good to sell a little bit at the all-time high. And it's always good to just sell a little bit whenever you feel like you might be over-invested.
Was it Fluffy Pony's technique that's like sell 5% every time it reaches all-time high?
That sounds good. I think you could even do 10%.
But,
yeah. People in the chat, this is not financial advice, but people just need to decide on their investment horizons and just decide, hey, I'm going to invest in Bitcoin for a year. I'm going to see what happens next year. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. Or maybe you're going to invest in Bitcoin for 5 years. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. You made your choice because you're investing for 5 years. You can't decide that you're going to invest in Bitcoin for 1 year and 37 days when it gets to 1 year and 37 days. You're just making random choices now. And sure, sometimes you're right. You make a good random choice. Other times you're wrong. You make bad random choices. So do what you want. Do up and downs. Remember the other thing, you can take 30% out. You can take 50% out. You can take 70, 90%. You can do things in percentages. You don't have to do it 100%. A lot of people are like, I'm out of that Bitcoin. I got out of that scheme, and they sell 100%. And then it goes back up, and they're like, what if I've only held 10%? I'd still at least have a little taste of that scheme. And I think that's an important advice to go through. Also, if you bought at the top, you can buy some now at the bottom, or maybe this is the bottom, and you can average the price out. So if you bought at 18,000 and now you're buying at 5,000, that one's worth less. You know, you can average the two together, and now it's worth, you know, only like 11,000. And if you bought another one at 5,000, then you're down to like, you know, 7,500. You can average the price of your investment down. Then if it goes back up, you have even more. But if it keeps going down, then you have more losses. So there's different ways to go.
Yeah, and it's also personal as well, because it really depends on how kind of your willpower works. Because there's some people that can be really methodical and will only execute like a program. They'll only execute a trade based on the parameters that they've decided up front. And then there's people that the emotions override it, and it's very difficult to find a balance, you know, between the two, and also kind of things like not growing attached to something in particular. So especially if you, as I know it's blasphemy, but I do trade a lot of shit coins, or I say a lot as in, you know, I've been interested in a lot of shit coins, and you get attached to some. And you shouldn't do. You should make kind of cold decisions based on the fundamentals, based on your own analysis and how much value you can see of the project having, rather kind of, you know, holding on for emotional value. Who's buying into, you know, currency, cryptocurrency, holding it too long, or, you know, not making.
Well, there's a lot of these rookie mistakes out there, and it's just important that everyone knows everyone's out here making the same rookie mistakes. No one sold it perfectly at the top. No one bought it perfectly at the bottom. A lot of people had more than they could afford to lose and went right over the edge with it. People have lost, you know, entire life savings. They've lost more than they invested. They invested at the top, and now they're down money. They've lost their life savings, but they're still holding on. Everyone has to make their own choice and determine how much risk you can take. So you just have to decide what's your risk reward structure. Have you put too much in? Maybe if you sold 10 or 20%, you'd feel a little safer now. You'd have enough rent money for next month. Nobody knows about this. We're all still holding on. Keeping an eye on the price of Bitcoin, everything else that's going on today. Looks like it continued to go down since we've been talking. Of course, Dan, you know, one of the theories for why the price of Bitcoin is down is because the Mad Tour has ended. And since Mad Bitcoin's no longer on tour, the price of Bitcoin has no choice but to go down. So
I think the correlation is it's there.
It's strong. It's strong. We're also looking at the donations. We still have only 17 donations received. So there's still a chance for you to be one of the first 20 donors to the Mad Bitcoins Homecoming Fund. We are back in Las Vegas. Spoiler alert, the homecoming worked. But it's still a chance to donate to make the airplane happen, make it all happen. You can support the World Crypto Network. I've got some more graphics here. We're keeping an eye on the chat. Thanks to everybody for joining us in the chat. Thanks for JW Weatherman for hanging out with us early, and Dan, the Crypto Raptor, for coming in later. Dan, where can people check out your stuff? Where can they learn more about Crypto Raptor?
Well, I'm in the process of trying to buy Crypto Raptor from someone else, but at the moment it's Cryptopoly. CRYPTOPOLY on Twitter. And that's got my, if you look at my pinned tweet, it's Hotel Poloniex, which is a cover of Hotel California about being stuck in Poloniex last year when they wouldn't verify my account, which was very frustrating. But I got over it in the end, got into my account eventually. You just have to persist.
Or try to find all the things you said.
Did I spell it right? Oh,
No. All right. So if you go to the Cryptopoly Twitter, that's named CryptoRaptor, you can get to Dan's video, which is on the CryptoRaptor YouTube channel. That's named Hotel Polynexia. You can check it out right here. Dan singing and rapping about Hotel Polynexia. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. All right, everyone, check out Dan's video. I'll even put the link in the chat. It's not Neil's asking more questions. It's not a technical reason that Bitcoin's going down. There's nothing wrong with the code or wrong with the Lightning Network. It's not a failing. It hasn't slowed down. It's like not off course or anything like that. This is more of a maybe a news related crash where this Craig Wright, all this trouble with the hard fork in Bitcoin Cash causes the price of Bitcoin to go down. This could also just be a chart related crash. We got to the end of that triangle. We had to go up or we had to go down. People started leading us down, so we went down, and that's the way it went. Or it could just be the time of the year or big whales moving, all kinds of other things. It's not necessarily that we can link the price to one event. The media loves to do that. They love to say that it was this one event or say that they've figured it out and they're going to predict the future for you. We're not doing that here. We're allowing you and us and all of us to explore these ideas and to discuss why we thought it went down and to remind people that it's not so bad. You've lost a little bit of money. You still have a lot of potential. There's a lot of good things that you can do in the future. So you need to hang in there. If you're feeling low, you need to call a friend, call the suicide hotline, something like that. We were talking earlier on the show. Everyone could always get a job at Subway, or we could sell blood or semen. It's not too late. Bitcoin traders, you have a lot of useful days left in you. Don't get too down. Dan, anything to say in closing of as we head towards the end of the show?
Well, I think that the cool thing is that whilst the Bitcoin price has been going down, you think of the number of different, services, new services that you've heard of since January, like sprouting up about Bitcoin, and then not just that, but the companies that want to use it. So, was it Starbucks said they want to use Bitcoin? As soon as they actually execute that, that's going to be Bitcoin around the world in a because Starbucks, as much as we don't like it because it's a centralized thing, but there's everywhere. It's going to make Bitcoin proliferate. So as we can get down about the price and down about when we should have bought or should have sold, the main thing is that in the background, and the reason why I don't have any fear is that all this amazing stuff is happening, from side chains to Lightning and all these services and infrastructure that's being built around Bitcoin. And that's the cool thing. The price will follow that eventually. So whether it kind of goes up or goes down in the meantime, as long as you're doing, playing outside you or in your risk comfort zone, and your safety comfort zone, because your risk appetite might be a bit, more hungry than what your safety zone is. As long as you're playing within those rules, then if things go to shit, then you're kind of okay. But keep yourself safe, protect your private keys, try and assess your risk situation, and forget about the Bitcoin price and do something creative in the meantime that's going to help Bitcoin in the future. And ultimately, we're kind of all, if you're into Bitcoin, which I'm not, I don't have any, but you're all shareholders in Bitcoin. And so the more you can do as a community to show that the Bitcoin community is a self-protecting, self-regulating, cool, loving community, then it's all for the greater good.
And we had another donation to our Tallycoin fundraiser. Thanks so much to donor 0.005 for breaking the donation jam. We had no donations for the last 3 days. Then boom, look at that, a donation. So Bitcoin is still working. You can donate to the Mad Bitcoins Tallycoin fundraiser right here on your screen. And thanks to everyone for joining us on Bitcoin Talk Show. I'm sure tomorrow, maybe the next day, I'll be able to get the server working, and we'll take some more calls. Today, we just had a good time chatting with you guys in the chat, and we'll be back again soon Be sure to give us a thumbs up and a share. Subscribe to the World Crypto Network down below. And remember, you could always donate Bitcoin to the Tallycoin fundraiser on your screen right now. Thanks so much.
Tom, when's the Malta Summit footage going to be done?
Oh, I don't know. It's all uploaded. I just need to tag and label all the interviews. The other footage I need to edit more. So I haven't edited that footage more yet. But we have lots of new footage from the Malta Summit that we'll be uploading soon, and footage from the Frankfurt Summit, as well as more of those interviews from 2017 at HCPP that are all rolling out here on the World Crypto Network YouTube channel. So just stay tuned to that. And until next time, bye-bye.